So I want to do some R&D with 3D vectors mapped to UV space, ID to height field, and crossing UV seams with stamps. So we scatter some points and bring them into COPs, and you notice they don't align or really connect with the UV map at all. It's just a typical setup using stamps and scattering on top of the geo. In this next example, we make a custom UV map and hide the seam under the chin. You might want to hide it somewhere else. And we scatter some points. And this time we map the new UV to the other UVs that gives us a distortion map to texture sample from. And that way, when we stamp points in there now, it actually maps the stamps into this other space, and we don't have any UV seams except where it is under the chin. The next time we're going to get a gradient vector here, and we're going to use that to align the stamps. So we promote that to an attribute called up, and we add a normal because we need that later. And same thing, we're going to be using the UVs here as well, the custom UVs that we made. So we copy those custom UVs called paint over. We color the mesh just for fun, so the stamps are colored. And this time what we do is we attribute swap the UV into P space. So we're actually doing the UV rasterization in SOPs instead of inside of COPs. And then we reorient the up to the normal once it's in UV space. And now we go in there, you'll see that same thing, we're mapping with our texture here. But now our points are in the UV space that we transferred at the SOP level, and now you can see we now have our stamps oriented correctly in UV space relative to the gradient. We're going to do the same thing here with the scatter points. Scatter points will not attribute orient on their own, so here I had to merge it with the mesh, so that way it has a surface to orient to. And so we're just doing the same thing as before, putting in UV space at the SOP level here and reorienting the ups to our normals that we set pointed down Z. And then down here, we split it out, the scatter, we split it out from the mesh, and we transfer the values over to the scatter from the mesh for the ups. And I added a sort, and then stamp is modulus 2 because I have two images. And then we blast away the mesh, and then we bring that into our COP network. And just like before, we've texture map it UV paint to UV space and stamp our points. And then we preview it, and you can see that same thing, the stamps are oriented to the up vectors. So that way we brought 3D space into UV space. And for this last one, nothing different except that we're going to stamp bacon this time, so stamp images, so instead of the SDFs. So it's the same setup as before. We bring in our UV space, and this time I bring in some bacon pictures, crop them to just get individual strips of bacon, and then don't forget we're stamping modulus 2 because I have two images of bacon, and I wanted to switch every second point to each picture of bacon that I have, the two image pictures. Note that ID here for each strip has a different color and an ID number, so I can use that as height map, and therefore you can see here that as each strip of bacon is added, it moves up above the other previous strip of bacon. You can also use it to raster in camera space.